Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
How are we doing, James?
All right, mate, you?
Yeah, all right. Monday, Monday's always a busy day. So yeah, it's all good. Just, I feel like every week now is getting a bit repetitive.
You sound very short of enthusiasm.
I just feel like, I wish something would change from week to week, but it hasn't. It's like even we have our work weekly cup of tea every day at 11:30 on Zoom where everybody gets together. It's hard now, right, for people to... What are we talking about? We're talking about the same thing we talked about last week and the week before. It doesn't seem to be any movement or change. And it's true from a football point of view as well, right? Outside of England, things are happening in different places like Holland and France. But here, are we any wiser than we were a week ago? I mean, some players came back into training and some didn't.
I think we're a lot wiser.
Go on then.
Well, I think this time next week, you and I sit down and do this podcast next Monday and we'll know what's happening.
Yeah, but we don't know right now.
I really believe we're about to find out.
You think that, obviously, every day is one step closer to us finding out what's going on.
There's plenty to talk about because there's plenty of noise through media, etc., in terms of what's happening. I think government meeting on Thursday is going to be really important. There are things we know now in terms of if football does restart, it will obviously be behind closed doors. It looks like teams will lose home advantage and they'll be played in neutral venues. I understand that Tottenham will definitely be one of those neutral venues. I imagine it would be one stadiums with high security. In other words, you can't get in that football stadium, basically. We're hearing noises of obviously the bottom six that this ain't for us. Shitting themselves about potentially getting relegated and the like.
Yeah.
And essentially, for any vote to go through, the Premier League needs a majority of 14 out of 20 teams if the 20 teams end up voting for something. Now, if the bottom six will say they don't want to carry on playing football and the other 14 do, then football will go ahead. It needs one more team to say, no, I don't fancy that either. And I'd suggest there are plenty of other teams who won't fancy this, mate. If there's going to be, because the talk now is to try and convince these bottom six to play is no relegation. In terms of financial impact to them is going to be horrendous. You imagine that in terms of, right, you've got no gate receipts, no income, etc., and then you're losing the Premier League money that you budgeted for as well, then you are in a crippling position come next season. So
I mean, they'll still get parachute payments. Parachute payments are no joke, right? Over the course of 3 years, you're talking about the best part of 90 million.
As we discussed with some of our correspondent friends yesterday, are the Premier League even going to want to release that 270-odd million? Perhaps it's in their interest as well not to relegate teams and therefore keep hold of their 270 million for parachute payments that can then be redistributed between the 20 to 23 Premier League clubs, whatever we end up for the forthcoming season. If there's no relegation, what are we even going back to? A race between Chelsea and Manchester United for fourth?
Then
it does. 75% of the teams have got nothing to play for, and then you're putting them at risk for what?
Yeah, it's true.
So at that point, when you start saying, right, relegation's off the table, then I think you're at void stage.
If you don't relegate any teams and we end up with a 23 team Premier League, how do you feel about that?
Neither for or against. It's changing times, so if that's the immediate way to get round it from the financial impact, if it helps save football teams that we have promotions and no relegations, then I'm kind of for it. But in terms of the sporting aspect of what would be left of the Premier League, that's what we'd be at. If essentially, other than Europa League places, which I know like for Wolves and Sheffield United will be important and they'll want to be back in, and they probably still feel they've got an outside shot of finishing top four. But essentially, we'll be going back to football, and if Chelsea perform well, the league is irrelevant. That's it. Yeah. There's nothing else to play for.
No. I was originally very anti a 23-man league. But I don't really have a reason why. I think it was just one of those. Um, I feel like there's a more elegant solution, which is void the season. That's probably why a 23-man team league doesn't really affect us in any way. We'll get 3 extra home games, which will probably mean our season tickets will be more expensive.
No one's having home games next season, mate.
Oh, well, true. Yeah, that's true. And
I'm a little uncomfortable with the odd number.
Yeah.
If it's going to be 23, I would prefer it to be 22 or 24,
and
then no League Cup. But if it
kill
helps
the
save
Cup
clubs,
sure.
then I'm okay with it.
I think if you're going to do it, kill the League Cup.
Well, it depends what the restart schedule is, right? In terms of whether these competitions will survive or not. Can European competition happen next year? Realistically, safely right now with air transport, etc. I don't think we really know, do we?
No.
Do you have one country as a base for all European games that's safe? Like, do you play them all in Iceland or something? Or Australia? Let's take all the European games to Australia. That's the latest idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone in Australia has pushed about, but nobody can enter Australia. So how do they want to let 1,000 people in from Premier League clubs? I don't get it.
It's stupid.
That's not going to take off.
Think about the time difference as well. Like, what we're going to do? Watch games at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m.
Don't think it would be that bad. They'd have them in the evenings in Australia, so it was
mornings
and afternoons
lunch times and stuff.
But still, the games are going to get played every day of the week, aren't they? So what, you're going to then have Premier League football while obviously a large number of people will be back at work. We won't be doing any fucking work.
We're not going to Australia, so
no.
There are 2 other things that happened in the last week that maybe did shed a little bit more light. I don't think they shed a lot more light, but obviously they're a little bit scandalous. One was the Bristol Rovers players representative leaked audio on WhatsApp, which I've had a full listen to. I mean, there were dozens of different permutations and combinations that were being discussed about what could and couldn't happen there. The primary thing that I think he was focusing on and talking about was around payment of players and the contracts. If you're out of contract and your contract's up on the 30th of June, you get 1 month's notice pay, which is July. Will you still carry on playing after July should you be needed to, if you know you're not going to get paid? I think that was the ultimate thing they were trying to establish, wasn't it?
After June, isn't it? Pay after June for
no, but they get paid. So if June 30th your contract's up, you get 1 month severance pay, which is July.
But my understanding was that if they continue to play into July, they don't get paid and they have to waive the severance.
They don't get paid August. They don't get paid in August. I think they would still get their severance in July.
Well, I don't have to. Contract's up on June 30th. The contract's up on June 30th. From a business point of view, Suj, what's your feelings having heard all that?
Well, when you let someone go, you make them work their notice. You don't have to make them work the notice period, but you can legally make them work their notice period. And if people are working, they should be getting paid if they're required. So they just extend it by a month. But at this point, the thing is, the business can't force the players to stay on. If the players agree, the business can pay them. If the players say no, thank you very much, you've already told me that you're going to let me go, then they can't do anything. It's tough. You've had to let the players go.
Again, I go back to this case. You've got Team X, 13th in League One, can't get promoted, can't get relegated. Why are they going to offer these extra month contracts? The season's finished. They're going to play youth team players and stuff.
They're not. You made a very interesting point in our chat yesterday. There's going to be a lot of 25, 26-year-old players who are going to be let go, and because of financial restraints, they're going to find it hard to get another club. A lot of players' careers are going to be ended by this potentially. I hadn't even thought of that, to be honest with you, James.
I know that's a certainty for many people at that level, sort of League One, League Two, and you may even argue upwards because of the dip in wages from, say, the Championship to League One. That there are footballers now who are in their mid-20s and their career is finished. Over. I'm not going to sugarcoat that any differently. They need to go out and learn new skills and find new jobs. They're not going to carry on playing football. That's just brutal reality, and those are the sort of realities we have to deal with. And that's why I keep saying there's no situation in terms of football's restart where everybody here is going to win. So if the clubs win and they survive, that's priority number one in most people's eyes. But I feel like it's now starting to come in people's consciousness about players from top to bottom. So Aguero coming out and saying, I'm scared, I don't want to go back and play. And Manchester City's Premier League season is finished. So why doesn't he just come back in August if that's when the Champions League is going to restart and try and win the trophy? Because there's nothing for him. He's Man City's top goal scorer. He's not going to catch Shearer's record. They're going to finish second. What's the point? You got, obviously, the clubs at the bottom of the league. Think of clubs like Brighton. So I was listening to Glenn Murray speak last week. And it feels like Brighton are the ones who've pushed most to say, let's not go back and play football. But it might not be from the club. It might be from the players. If you take the example of a player like Glenn Murray, who admittedly his career is nearly finished at his age. He's like 54, isn't he? But there'll be players at Brighton who have it in their contract to say, right, if you get relegated, you're getting a 40% reduction in wages or something if you go down to the Championship. So as human beings, for them, if they've got the option not to play football and maintain their current salaries going into next year, what would you do? Just take the football element out of it. If that's you and your job, right, so if I don't go back to work, I'm on the same salary in 3 or 4 months. If I do go back to work, I could lose 40% of my salary. Think about that for a second. They're not going to want to play. There's no way around that.
You're right. You're right.
And then you go down to, like I said, to the lower leagues where it's bad for players. It's really bad. There's no... A player who's on a very good wage in League One, but he's not good enough for Championship level, for example, he's either going to have to accept that he's going to take a ridiculous hit in wages when he wants to find a new club, or he's not going to get a new club. That's it. That's the reality.
And the other thing that came out was it Bradford and season tickets? Yeah.
So Bradford have said because Bradford actually had their season tickets for next season already on sale. Which
some clubs have taken initial payments and deposits on next season's tickets as well, right? I think, is it Norwich? I think our Norwich correspondent Mark was saying that the first £47 or something's come out already.
Yes, certainly some clubs. I mean, just before the cut-off was when Spurs were going to start taking money for next year, and then they obviously froze it. Yeah. But there were some clubs who were already processing payment for next season, and obviously the clubs will have that money. The key note in Bradford's worded statement on their own official website was kind of like, hang on, we don't know what's happening yet in terms of money, but we'll use it for something for you in the future. But bottom line, we anticipate all of next season to be behind closed doors. Now, at that point, if we're looking at no football with fans till, I guess, Euro 2020.
One sec. Sorry, James. My audio stopped at 13 minutes. What's the timer on yours?
No, Jesus.
I'm just going to restart it. And if you go back to...
About 15.
I started mine later than you.
Yeah.
So you were saying Bradford, Spurs were going to take their first payment just before...
If we think... Did you stop the Zoom?
No, the Zoom's we'll just have to cut it. Yeah.
Cool. If we have no football till Euro 2020, as I was saying, then how are these lower league clubs going to survive without no gate receipts? Now, I've looked into this iFollow because one of the things Bradford said was games will be available to stream on iFollow. I didn't know what iFollow was. iFollow has actually been around for 2 years in the lower leagues, where essentially, if your club isn't playing between 2:45 and 5:15 p.m. in the UK on a Saturday, you can pay to stream the games in the UK. If you are overseas, you can get every game for your club. So if you're a Bradford City fan and you're in Mauritius, you can basically give the club, it's £110, and you can stream every game for the season.
That's cheap.
I think it is, and I think you'll find that. But what I didn't realise was that here is a potential source of income for these clubs. Now, they're going to need to up those prices. Now, the numbers that these clubs get at the moment are very, very low.
You say they're going to have to up the prices, but take Bradford, for example. How much is a season ticket going to be? 250, 300?
Well, Bradford are one of the best supported clubs in the bottom two leagues. So from that perspective, in terms of getting streamers in, they'll find it probably easier than others. But I think in terms of a survival tool, if you take a club like Bradford, which is, I don't know, their average attendance is decent. It's about somewhere between 12 and 15,000 or something, I think. If suddenly you've got all those people who wouldn't go to the game and they're paying, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds or whatever to go to the game, if they're then paying 10 pounds every week to stream the game online, and you don't have the running costs of stewards, police, etc. Obviously, you're missing concessionary sales and that, but at least then there's a source of income. Clubs, if they were to do it individually, could then obviously use their websites for sponsorship and stuff. So for me, thinking these guys have got no source of income, maybe actually they do. The cases where you've got clubs that are less supported, if you use a comparison, say Bradford and Accrington Stanley, who average, I don't know, 3,000 or so, it's going to be more difficult for them. But then a club like Accrington will be well budgeted in terms of what they're paying their wages in comparison to a Bradford. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. It definitely does. I was just thinking about the price of this streaming service versus the season ticket entry price, and it should be about 30 or 40%. But then it's different when the season ticket price is actually irrelevant because people are not going to be able to go to the games.
Well, I think for clubs, if you could get a commitment, say there's 23 home games, the one obvious thing is the 3:00 games would have to become available, and I'm sure they would. But if you had 23 home games, would the general supporter be happy to give their football club £230 now for the season for next year to help keep it afloat? I think the majority would. Now, obviously, not everybody can afford to go, there's 230 quid, but then you can stagger it and say, oh, I don't know, you pay 11, 12 pound per game or something instead, rather than be committed to the whole season. So then you've got an immediate income and then small amounts incoming as well. But just saying, I think if it really gets pushed, the fact that I'd never heard of this iFollow until that Bradford's post was put on their website.
I never heard of it either.
Makes me think that this is something that people don't even know is there. So it's been around in the Football League since 2018. Maybe it's not had much publicity as well because the majority of games will be played at 3:00 on a Saturday and they're not accessible to people in this country. But obviously, if they are, then, you know, if you take I don't know, like a Sheffield Wednesday, or say Leeds stay in the Championship, right? And then the only way to watch Leeds next year is through that. Leeds will get loads of subscribers.
Yeah,
they'll be
for
fine.
Sure. Yeah,
huge football club. So it's going to be different each individual circumstance. But it was something I wanted to share, that actually, if the EFL get that right, there is a source of income. And I know a lot of people think, well, who's going to be bothered to pay £10 to watch Accrington Stanley? Well, Accrington Stanley fans will. And I think that's being really underestimated, the power of the loyalty of the real fan, if you will.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. We'll find out very soon what is happening. Maybe next week we'll be talking about it in... Well,
government meeting is Thursday and Premier League meeting is Thursday as well. I presume the Premier League will go into that meeting knowing what the government are going to be announce. So they'll probably be briefed in advance. I don't think they're going to be sitting there in a room waiting for Boris to do his thing and then decide from there. I think they'll probably know on Wednesday, and then through the media, we'll probably all have an idea of what's happening, and then the Premier League will hit theirs Thursday.
Make their announcement thereafter.
I think we might be looking at a void. That's my instinct. And I've never thought that. You know, I've always been of the opinion of play this football season no matter what.
Even if it's 2024, James has still been adamant that we want to get this season.
Well, you know my opinion. If we can help save football clubs, I would just come back in 9 months and finish the current season, and next season doesn't exist. That would be my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than what happens when we go back, we start playing, 3 weeks in, we have to stop again. Then what? We can't sit here and pretend that's not a possibility, that we restart and then have to stop again. So then what? Oh, we'll finish it in September. And then what about next season? And now actually, because the Euros have been assigned to next summer, there's more pressure.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's making me think about the void is the idea that essentially the rules have changed. In terms of, there's some clubs have got 5 home games left. Some have got 4. You're still opening yourselves up. Brighton, for example, have got really difficult home games left, but would have obviously had the advantage of having them at home. Suddenly you put them in a neutral venue, they don't fancy their chances so much.
No, it is. It is. You're right. You're right there. It is going to be tricky to see what happens.
I suspect that someone's going to refuse.
And
that will lead to a void.
What I wanted at the beginning when this all started hasn't changed really. I wanted one full football season, and if sacrificing this season means we get a full football season next season, I'm all right with that. If sacrificing next season means we get a whole football season this season, I'm all right with that. I just want one full season rather than 2 half seasons or messed up situations. And because of the uncertainty around it, I think they'll void this one to give us a full season next season. But maybe even commit right at the start that the whole season's behind closed doors.
I think you might be right. But if UEFA are insisting on still finishing this football season, the Premier League isn't going to start in August, by the way.
No.
It'll start in September.
Well, most of the individual leagues have voided by then UEFA haven't got anything to talk about, have they? They can't do anything.
UEFA will be desperate to finish their competitions. 100% desperate. Too much money at stake, etc. We talk about the impacts of sponsorship from the Premier League, etc. What about for UEFA? All their sponsorship, huge sponsorship numbers with your Gazprom and Heineken and whomever else. What are these guys going to be saying to UEFA if it's called off?
Yeah.
Every individual business is going to look out for themselves. It's all right, well and good, people saying, take the example of Sky and the Premier League, and people saying, I'm sure Sky will waiver the money. Well, whatever you think of Sky need to do what's best for them as a running business to continue, right?
A lot of subscribers are not paying their monthlies with Sky right now, so...
I suspect that's a very unique case where Sky needs the Premier League and the Premier League needs Sky a little bit at the moment as well, where there probably will be some sort of compromise. But in terms of individual sponsorship deals, I think that's a very, very different case. True. What about you can even break it down into shirt sponsors and stuff like that? Do they want some of the money back they're offering? What about stadium naming rights? What about Emirates? Do they want some money back off Arsenal if they can't use a stadium? Like, it's just it never ends. You can take it in so many directions. It never, ever ends.
Should we go through some Twitter questions, James?
Yeah, let's do that. And then we'll do a bit of Champ Man after.
Champ Man FPL. There's going to be a few of these that we have spoken about already, James. Before I get into the Twitter questions, do you want to give everybody a bit of an insight into what is happening on the 23rd of May? We don't need to give them a lot of details, but at least let's give them a heads up.
Yeah, the biggest car crash in the history of Planet FPL.
It's going to be the greatest thing we've ever done.
It probably is going to be the greatest thing we've ever done. Yes, we will be doing a 24-hour live stream on YouTube from 6 a.m. on Saturday, May the 23rd until 6 a.m. on Sunday, May the 24th, featuring guests from the FPL community, lots of Planet FPL features. It's going to be planned properly, and it's going to be a blast, I think, if me and Suj make it through.
I've got no doubt about making it through. I think the adrenaline...
Really? I've got loads.
I think it'll be fine. I think that 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. final 3-hour stint's going to be the hardest when nobody's left watching us anymore and it's just us with a couple of tinnies, but that'll be fun.
I think we've got some loyal ones from around the world, like down under and that, who are we'll be with you at the end, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's definitely going to help. We've already had a number of people come forward with charitable donations. At the end of the day, we've got to remember we're trying to raise money for NHS-related charities and stuff. That's why we're doing it. It's a charity live stream. We've had a Raheem Sterling shirt donated for auction, signed Raheem Sterling shirt. So and it's a Man City one, not a Liverpool one.
Have you got that shirt?
No. I'm not.
It ain't fucking donated yet, then, is it?
I've got photographs of it. We'll give details of who's donated it and stuff soon. We've had donations of prizes for the quizzes as well. Our friends at Fear Nuts have said they're going to donate a case to the winners of the quiz, which we're going to look at as well. We've got bits and pieces in the works. So anybody that wants to help support and raise money, we're open to suggestions as well. Do let us know. as we piece together the 23rd of May, 24 hours, football madness.
Go.
Cool. Questions. All right. This one's a good one to start with, James. FPL Chancellor, our friend Dan, even if the government says we can't resume, do you think all 20 Premier League clubs can get, even if the government says we can resume, do you think all Premier League clubs will get a season finished and done by August the 2nd, given that Brighton have already opposed the neutral ground idea?
No.
I think we're erring towards no now, aren't we? It's going to be pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. If they start by mid-June and there's no interruption, they'll do it. But that's easier said than done, my friend.
Indeed. Our friend Chris Tellers. Chris, hope you're well. Hi, guys. Hope you're doing well. With the recent rumours around the likes of Bergkamp, Dirk Kuyt, Larson and Philip Cocu being interested in purchasing a Premier League club, and the fact that Beckham and Ibrahimovic own stakes in the US and Sweden, respectively, what are your opinions on footballers owning clubs? And do you think it'll be something we see more often, considering how much money they make in their playing careers? Sorry, long question, basically.
No, it's a good question. Just shout out to Ronald Koeman, because he's part of them Dutch lads as well, part of that group potentially, and he's got coronavirus at the moment, so well wishes to him and anybody else affected. I like that question.
Are these guys clubbing together, Bergkamp?
Yeah, that's the thinking. Yeah, a few of the old Ajax boys and whatnots. Kuyt played the final, didn't he? But certainly there's Dutch links. But in terms to answer the question, yes, it is something, and we are already seeing it more, aren't we? With the highlights there of Beckham and Ibrahimovic. You got the class of '92 at Salford.
Yeah, and it's a slightly different purchase that, because that's probably their pocket change rather than actual real money.
I think to see these sort of guys take over a Premier League club, very, very unlikely. I mean, we're talking about the sort of money that these guys who are probably taking over Newcastle have got, right? Like no footballer, even Beckham, right? He can't get anywhere near this sort of money.
No.
So I think in terms of ownership, yes, you will see a lot more of it, but I don't think you'll see it at Premier League level unless someone takes over a lower championship club, for example, at the moment, and then takes them forward in that way. But the more players earn money, the richer they are, the smart ones who are investing their money, etc. Yeah, you can see it. Beckham's basically built his own franchise in MLS, right?
So Beckham, you would say, is probably top of the tree in terms of footballers' wealth, if you take into account all of the other stuff that goes with it in terms of endorsements and stuff. Maybe from retired players, certainly. I think the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi may have slightly bigger.
I was just going to say Cristiano Ronaldo springs to mind, and I'm not saying he would or he wouldn't, but you could see him maybe going, I'm going to buy Sporting Lisbon, his first Portuguese club or something like that. I think, we could see more of that sort of thing happening in the future.
So just a quick Google, James, whilst I've got a PC up in front of me. David Beckham's net worth is $450 million US.
It's nothing.
That's a lot.
No, it's nothing.
To buy a football club, if Newcastle's 200 million, he's basically spending all his money to buy Newcastle, give or take. Yes. Well, it's not quite, but half his wealth to buy Newcastle United, it doesn't seem sensible. No. Cristiano Ronaldo has a net worth of $500 million US. So there's not much between them. I mean, Cristiano's still playing and he's 10 years younger than David Beckham, but it goes to show that, they don't have enough, unless they're going to put all their money into a football club, because even once you've bought the club, you've got to reinvest in infrastructure and stadiums and players and so on and so on. If you're a chairman who's not putting your hand in your pocket, you get some negative press pretty damn quick.
Go on then, Google, what's the value of Sporting Lisbon?
Sporting Lisbon, worth. Yeah.
It won't be, it's probably under 100 million, I'd say.
Sporting Lisbon hasn't come up with anything easily.
No, I bet it's under 100.
164 million euros.
Okay.
I think is what it's saying.
Well, he's going to keep earning money, isn't he? That's the point. So it won't be long before Ronaldo is billionaire. And then, maybe it's the sort of thing. What do you do when you've got all that money and you finish? Maybe it's the sort of thing that would maybe interest him. I don't know. He might decide he wants to buy a smaller Portuguese club, for example.
I have no issue with football people being more involved with football. I think it's definitely a good strategy.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but just it's like, but the best ex players don't make the best managers. I don't think they'll necessarily make the best owners.
No,
Being an
they've
investor,
got,
being a chairman are two slightly different things. So
yeah, this is like goes back to the Thursday throwback, right? Sugar great at business, but not great at football. Needed football people around him, whereas someone like a Ronaldo is going to need some business savvy people around him way to go and do that. It's obvious.
Yeah. We've got utterly TC Tom Campbell. How you doing, Tom? You well? Got your ball back from the neighbours or what?
Tom's launched a podcast, by the way. Congratulations, Tom.
Oh, now I know why he's asking this question, James. Hi guys, looking back at what the Planet FPL podcast social media engine has grown into, what would you say have been the standout moments for you guys? First live show, correspondence idea, branching out to things like the Berry Pod and so on. So basically, he's asking for all our secret ideas, James. That's what he's saying. He wants to get his podcast. I didn't know he launched his pod, but now he's trying to steal our ideas, James.
Yeah. What's? It's a great question. What's your answers to
that? The 30 and 30, when we did that in June, in the close season, was definitely a slight game changer. I think that definitely helped. So I'm always a fan of when everybody's going left, let's try and turn right, which is obviously like even now downtime. If everybody's not producing content, let's produce more. So I think that 30 and 30 was a real game changer. Yeah, and obviously it was fueled by the correspondence. Without the correspondence, we wouldn't have been able to do 30 and 30. So I think that definitely helped. The correspondence, with the greatest respect to them, most of them had social media followings in the hundreds, not in the thousands and thousands. So it wasn't like we went and picked the 20 biggest accounts we could find to try and get them involved. We wanted season ticket holders at their clubs who had a passion for FPL. So I don't know if that necessarily boosted the numbers, but it definitely gave the brand something that others didn't have in terms of breadth.
I think with them as well, I would credit the correspondence massively. I think with them, yes, we generally tried to target people who were season ticket holders, but there were other cases where we wanted the right person in. So like Stephen Toomey at Sixth Goal.
Yeah.
Tomo at FPL Blade. So they're both obviously in America, for example. Mm-hmm. There were people who I'd got to know in the community who didn't have money to take. Gary is my cat player, and I knew he would be perfect for United and stuff. So we ended up with a mix, but I think it was when the correspondence came in, and it wasn't like we went, we're going to do this. Basically, we went, these are the 20 people, go and follow them. This is what they're doing. I think people then started taking you and I a little bit more seriously in terms of what we were trying to give as an output from a content perspective. And then to have their insight with the articles, their guest appearances on COTC is absolutely invaluable. Even if you think like we have, say, I don't know, Jack from Burnley on and Stephen from Watford at Sixth Goal, and you think, oh, I ain't buying any of them next week. It'll come back round where having listened to that 3-4 weeks earlier will have been really important for when you want to make a decision later. And people constantly tell me that, oh, I'm glad I listened to that podcast you did with the guys 4 weeks ago or so. It's helping me in my decision now. So they've had a major impact. The proudest one for me is always the drive as well, though. The fact that we just say and we do because we're stupid.
So Rob Pick, Rob, how you doing, mate? Well, BBC did their top 10 players never to play for the big six in the Premier League. Thought it would be a bit long to do a top 10, but do you have a top 3? Thanks, guys. I haven't seen this on Match of the Day, to be honest.
I have not been watching the Match of the Day top 10 specials. However, I did see this one on Saturday night. It was made farcical by their announcement in minute 1 that the person that would obviously take first place, they weren't going to put forward because he was on the panel.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's top
obviously, yeah, of course, it's unquestionable. So I think what got people's backs up about it was the idea that they weren't going to pick from the top 6 currently, the so-called big 6. So Shearer obviously played for Southampton, Blackburn, Newcastle. And then you've got Ian Wright going, yeah, you never played for a big club, mate, and all that. And Shearer's probably thinking, well, I won the title in 95.
Yeah.
I become the British record transfer going to Newcastle. So it wasn't like he didn't play for big clubs. And some of the names in there, like Gary Speed didn't spend many years outside the top six, I think, with like Leeds, Everton, Newcastle. David Batty, exactly the same. Won the title with Leeds, won the title with Blackburn.
Yeah.
Then he was finishing second like 2 years in a row with Newcastle. So it kind of did make a complete mockery of it, really. It would have been more interesting, although harder work, to find players who had perhaps never finished in the top six, or top four might have been easier. So like your Matt Letizier's and stuff. The name that I thought was blindingly obvious that was missing was Leighton Baines.
Okay.
That was the one name I just thought that they spoke about Cahill a lot. I think, and I might be wrong, Evertonians can correct me, but I think the majority would have gone Baines over Cahill if you asked them. I would have thought. I might be completely wrong on that. I don't know. And
Shearer, Letizia, definitely good count. They're good shouts.
On the way they
Cadio.
did it, my top three would have been probably Shearer, Speed, Letizia, which I think is what they ended up with anyway. And then David Batty. That's probably how I'd have done it.
From a West Ham point of view, I think Di Canio is probably the one that I would say that he was.
Di Canio was in their 10, mate.
Yeah, good player. Brian Blades Attack asks, if you could remove one kind of vegetable from existence, what would it be?
Bloody hell. Brussels. That's Christmas finish.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not a fan of Brussels? I don't mind Brussels.
You don't get them in June, do you? It's a waste of time to me now. Yeah. It's just something that pops up in Christmas that makes you have wind.
Aubergine. Aubergine can do one, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, I don't mind that.
I've got no need or desire to have aubergine in my life. So, Brian, if you can destroy all of them, I'll be happy. James, you're going to love the next question. Pirlo's pen, because Mark FPL Badger said he was going to write this question, but he bottled it. And I'm glad I'm the one reading the questions. James, it's a champ man question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Will you be jumping on Sol Campbell now that we know he is on penalties?
Have you got any questions that are still related to non-champ man FPL stuff?
I just wanted to hear you say his name.
We can talk about it because I've got a strong opinion on this, actually. But are there any other questions we can do first?
Yeah, he asked another question as well, so let's do that. What are your thoughts on Pochettino going to manage Newcastle? He's asked both your opinions.
Did you see his interview on BT last week?
I did not. Do you think it's a done deal?
No, he was talking about Spurs. I want to come back. I've got unfinished business. I need to go back to Spurs and all that. I'm like, oh my God. So I sent a tweet out. Newcastle need a top-class manager, right? With experience of winning trophies, etc. Go and get Mourinho.
Yeah.
Mourinho's the guy for you, Geordies. He'll take you to next level. He will take you to next level. Can I have the guy that I love back, though?
I think it's going to be a very shrewd and good appointment for them if they do get Pochettino. And the money, obviously, that comes with it, because he'll be able to. He's a long-term thinking he'll build. Yeah, I think it's a very, very good appointment. Backed, they've got a decent enough youth academy and youth system there. You do see players coming through like the Longstaffs and Lascelles and stuff. So I think they'll be all right. I think he'll do well there.
Lascelles was bought, but from Nottingham Forest. But they have you're right. They have had a number of kids over the last 15, 20 years or so. As a club like that size should do, really.
And it's a catchment area that they have. Like one club cities.
Well, Newcastle is such a special case from that perspective. Yes, if Pochettino went up there, he would. The fans would think he was like a god. I'm certain of it, and he would do very, very well.
The Blue City, if you had to go back in time to live in a different age, must be at least 30 years ago. I was still alive 30 years ago. So, where would you go and why? If you could go back to a different age. I quite like the age we're in now, like technology and all that. I don't know if I want to go back to
Can we just go back like 12 months?
Yeah. 3 months will do.
I'll say that from a life perspective and a football perspective, by the way.
3 months will do.
You got to go to like the late 60s or something. And parties then must have been good.
Yeah, hippieville. I think that'd be pretty decent.
I just think of like Austin Powers and that.
Yeah.
Hit me up, Heather Graham and all that.
Yeah, I think the 60s is right. Right, that's Champ Man. This is Champ Man. Matthew Halliday says, "Hi fellas, Brentford fans saw their last ever game at Griffin Park in March without fully knowing it at the time. Any suggestions as how to say farewell in these times?" Please also tell us about your last ever games at Upton Park and the Old White Hart Lane, respectively.
It's awful. I can't. Awful. I can't imagine that. It's ridiculous to talk about considering what the state of life and society is at the moment. But that's awful. You don't know that that's going to be your last game. Say you've gone there for 60, 70 years or so. Even less, even 15, 20, doesn't matter. And no longer, there's no goodbye, nothing.
Yeah, I suppose.
Bad.
And is there no opportunity for them to just roll out one final testimonial game or something?
Well, it depends. Do they, from a financial perspective, do they need to like sell the land immediately and stuff like that? Don't know. I don't know if the new stadium's finished. It just might not be able to, mate.
I remember when Barnet moved from Underhill to the Hive, the stadium stood there for quite some time before they knocked it down to start building flats. So there's every chance that the stadium may stay there for a little while, and then
I imagine what they'll do is they'll let supporters go in. I don't know, 50 to 100.
They piss on the corner flags or something.
50 to 100 at a time. They'll let them go in and have a look round and stuff like that. But it's not the same, is it? You want the whole thing at the end with the ground fall or the pitch invasion or whatever. So it's not just going in and seeing it as an empty stadium. Don't get me wrong. I wish I could walk into the Old White Hart Lane one more time and see it empty. But yeah, you probably think things in your mind are, I'd take this sort of photos and, do you know what I mean? You might not have never done that sort of thing because you just don't think it's going to, I'll do it at the end, last game and all that. And then it doesn't happen. Yeah. It's quite sad.
See, I don't like taking pictures outside the ground because I just treat it as, there's the tourists when they're all standing outside by the signs that their pictures taken and that. I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to be a tourist. But then with my kids and stuff, you think, you know what, you want these little memories and stuff. And I'm notoriously bad with just taking pictures in general on my phone. I don't do it enough, I think. But yeah, it will be a shame. I reckon they might hopefully, touch wood, get another game there or something.
Yes, let's hope so. They could do. The problem is it's the people going though, isn't it? Yeah, you could probably have like a game there, but is anyone going to be able to see it?
We have here Shiva FPL. When the Premier League restarts, do you reckon the fixtures will be in the same sequence and order from game week 32 onwards?
I would have thought so, yes. I would have thought that we would start with Man City against Arsenal and Aston Villa against Sheffield United. Because they've got an extra game to play, right?
Sure.
Just makes sense that those two fixtures would be first, I think. And then you've got everybody level and then everyone can pay every 3 days or whatever. That makes sense. They might move it about a little bit on the basis of that. In terms of spacing of days or whatever, I don't know. I would imagine, though, that it would largely be very much the same. I would have thought. So obviously, if you move one set of fixtures from one game week, you're moving the whole game week, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, and I would imagine whatever game week was the last one would definitely be the last one.
And Shiva FPL also asked another FPL related question. We haven't been getting many of these, so let's do it. Given that they've kept the free transfer rolling all the way from game week 32 to 38, is it likely that there won't be an additional wild card before the resumption?
I have no idea.
I haven't been logged in, to be honest. So
I don't know.
The fact that we have one free transfer week in, week out doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever. I haven't been looking at it at all.
I have no idea what they'll do. I don't know if they can restart anything. Yeah. I don't know if we should all be playing our bench boost next week, just in case. I have no idea. So I really don't want to advise on that. If you want to smash out your bench boost, smash it out. But it might be there's a game week 39 and they say, sorry, you've used it. Who knows? I have no idea. I suspect that they've got an algorithm where they couldn't freeze the game. That's what I suspect. Although it's easy enough for them to move deadlines from, say, I don't know, suddenly there's a Friday night game, the deadline becomes the Friday. So I don't understand why it couldn't be frozen, but there you go. I don't know. I also don't really care at the moment. Sorry, that's not what people want to hear, but I really couldn't give a shit about it.
And we've got one more question, James. Billy Hadaway. Will Man City's Champions League ban still be upheld? I think it will. I think it will.
I don't.
You think they'll just postpone it or delay it, or what?
I just don't know how you can have FFP rules at the moment. And this is where Newcastle may have a window where they can exploit everything.
I think they will try and stick by it. They will try and stick by it.
When's the court case going to be heard?
Who knows? They'll do it over Zoom, James, just like everything else in this world. It's a Zoom world nowadays, isn't it? Indeed. That was the Twitter questions, James. We've got a couple of Champ Man ones, but we'll talk about them when we talk about Champ Man. But anybody that's not playing Champ Man and normally just switches off can switch off now, I guess, can they?
See you later. Bye for now.
One thing we need to just talk about, James, because I know this will be devastating for you. I heard that Love Island's not going to be running as well this year. Sorry. So
terrible news.
Should we have a moment's silence for that?
No, let's not. I might crack open a beer actually. Jesus Christ. I bet there are some people in meltdown about that.
Yeah, true. Same as we did when there was no football, to be honest with you. But I don't think in my life I've ever watched an episode of Love Island.
I've seen it because I see shit on my timeline.
Yeah, I know what it is, but I've never seen an episode of Love Island. I'm quite proud of that, actually.
You'd probably love it. I reckon it'd be right up your alley, actually.
Nah, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I get irritated by other people's stupidity, James. I'm a bit,
Oh, you definitely love these lot then, I'm sure.
Shall we talk about Champ Man FPL? How many points did you get, James?
56.
That's a net 56, or did you say any hits? Or
no hits, no transfers, 56. Sereni sent off.
Ouch.
wasn't ideal. Yeah. It's interesting for me because I've obviously had a red arrow with that score. It was a very high scoring average this game.
Yeah. Where did you drop down to?
I've dropped to 70 something.
Okay.
But every single week so far, the lowest score I've had is 53. So I'm averaging at about 58 at the moment because I had 170 and a few 60s. So the lowest score I've had is 53. I'm averaging about 58. And I'm really happy just trundling along at the moment, chips intact, etc. I've got a few issues now with Sammy Hippier injured, with a really good home fixture with Shearer suspended is bollocks. I've now got a keeper problem because the intention was always, the worst bit about Sereni's suspension, I obviously had him rotating with Keller. I'm going to use Keller this week, and that was always the plan. But then the plan was to use Sereni for 3 excellent Ipswich home fixtures. And those are the 3 games that he's suspended for.
Yeah.
It becomes a waste of time for me. And I can't just leave it because in game week 14, I think it is, which is the final one of Sereni's suspension, Keller's likely to go and play for the USA. So I actually, from being in the position of choosing to rotate, I might actually be in a position where I've got none. The ones I'm looking at goalkeeper-wise, and I suspect there's others in a similar position. David Seaman's obviously holding on to his place at the moment. 5 million, great option. Mark Crossley at Middlesbrough, 4.5. The one I think I'm going to end up going for, and it won't be this week, but in the coming weeks, is Paul Jones of Southampton. We've got a few decent home fixtures, and just for me personally, it rotates quite nicely with Keller. And I think I'm probably leaning towards a game week 15 wild card. We're about to come into game week 11. So I am looking at short-termism. I've got Shearer suspended. So the moves I'm thinking about doing now, and I haven't decided, is I'm thinking of going Shearer to Grabby this week.
Yeah. Which
is obviously a massive drop-off of like 5 million in the bank. Grabby's at home to Arsenal, so it's not the best fixture, but I'm looking to rotate him over these next 4 and then get Sylvester in probably for Dabby's ass.
And double United defence there with Blanc and Sylvester.
Correct. Then I'll be Sylvester, Blanc, Hippier and Hart. I've still got Ian Hart. Mm-hmm. And Rufus will be my 4.5 bench filler. And then that's very strong defensively. And then following that, game week 12, probably be looking to downgrade Scowcroft, and that allows me to get up from Henrik Pedersen to Henry. Right.
And then you have a very heavy attack there.
And then it's short-termism because I think game week 13 is when United go to Middlesbrough. Obviously, Middlesbrough top the league at the moment. Henry looks the standout captain in that fixture.
Mm.
But I don't want to be doing. Van Nistelrooy is probably the best in 14. So just short termism, want to get them both in, I think.
Mm. I had a reasonable week this week, 64 points, so it's put me into the top 1,000 now.
Yay!
So you can see me on the spreadsheet somewhere down there, and I feel fairly well set up. Seaman in goal. Serrani's my backup keeper, but while Seaman's got his place, I've got no plans to bring Serrani in. How long's he suspended for, Serrani? Would it be a 3-game?
3-game ban, game week 12 to 14.
Okay, so I mean he's there in the background as a nuisance. If Seaman was to lose his place, that would be a problem for me. I didn't make any transfers, so I got 2 this week. My defence, I don't see any need to make any changes. A nice little assist from Ashley Cole this week. Clean sheet from Lauren Blanc. I had John Arisa. And I still got Ian Hart and Olaf Melberg's my 4.5. So I think the defence I'm comfortable with. I can get 4 out of 5 any given week from them. Up front, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Alan Shearer as captain did the business. Lippmann and I've got out still injured, and I've just left him there. It's my midfield that's not really been doing very well.
You've only got 1 forward this week at the moment.
At the moment, I've got 2 free transfers. So I'm not worried. Kuehl, Solano, Scowcroft, McPhail, and Wilcox. I
would prioritise sorting them forwards out. I think, Suj.
Well, Shearer's going. I'm selling Shearer anyway. So my question, I wanted to get my hands on David Beckham. I think he's a really reliable, ticking along kind of midfielder. I have weeks where it's feast and famine in my midfield, and it's much more famine than it's been feast. So I want a couple more reliable players in there. So downgrading Shearer to Jason Ewell, Canute, Bellamy even, if Shearer's suspended. Bellamy at 6 million might be a good short-term shout. Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, so whoever next on the Newcastle list.
I really like the Jason Ewell shout, actually. If I was looking at the 7 million valuation, Boxic is obviously up to 100% fitness. I think for those who've already used the wild card, I would go Boxic and then hold it through. They've got an amazing run of fixtures coming up, but it kind of really starts on 15, I think. Now, for me, if that's when I'm probably wild carding, I'd just do it then. I think if I was pushed into going one around about that value now, it'd be the other one you mentioned, actually, Jason Ewell. Has got, for people thinking of wildcarding sort of around 14, 15, I think Jason Ewell back from suspension is a really good shout for Charlton. They've got 2 of the next 3 at home, and all 3 are decent fixtures. He's returned in some big games anyway. So I think Jason Ewell for the shorter term punt, Alan Boxic, if you've already used your wildcard, would be the advice. And I want to be in that valuation. It's just, for me and my circumstance, I think I really need to get Henry in for that game week 13 particularly. And they've also got an amazing home fixture in game week 12. So I don't want to wait for it for the hokey cokey. I want to get it done for the following game week, following Wednesday's game week 11. One major thing really bugging me at the moment is that does mean still going with no Middlesbrough for a little while for me. And although they've got Fulham away this week, it's not the easiest. They've got Man United at home in a couple of weeks. They're doing the business, right? And they've been doing well away from home as well. And the other one that's really bugging me is it means no Arsenal defensive at the moment, which probably gives you a nice segue, Suj, into the question that you wanted to ask earlier.
Sol Campbell is on penalties, apparently, eh?
Fuck Sol Campbell.
You don't think you want any of Sol Campbell?
For those paying attention, and I will credit our friends Luke from Scout and Heskibo, there were 3 Arsenal players who could well take the Arsenal penalties who were not on the pitch at the time he took those penalties in that Champions League game. Those were Tikhonov, Albertini, and I think Perez was the other one. And I think Bergkamp might not have been on the pitch as well. So there are other players in that Arsenal squad who may actually take penalties. Some people might find it weird that I haven't mentioned Thierry Henry. I can't give you a good explanation, but it seems that he won't be on them. So there is no guarantee that he will be taking the penalties in any case.
I wouldn't be buying Sol Campbell based on the fact that he's going to be penalty taker. You'd be mad.
If I was going defensively Arsenal, I would get Seaman or Ashley Cole. There is no circumstance where I'll get that prick in my team. I told you at the start, I don't care if he scores every week. No way. It's not happening.
I'm looking at, for my midfield, I'm looking at Johnston, Beckham.
Yeah, good shout. Great shout, Johnston.
Kuehl, Wilcox. I'll keep Wilcox, and I'll probably then end up keeping McPhail as well, just to give me Leeds coverage. But I think, those two. And then I'll lose Solano. But then obviously Solano might play further forward for Newcastle right now whilst
I
Emma's
wouldn't
out.
mind losing Solano. One of the reasons I'm quite happy to lose him is because his ownership is so high now, and they've got not the best run of fixtures.
They haven't been doing very well.
He's one where you're looking at it and going, his value's so good. I think it's more just a leave, really. But I know each circumstance can be different. I think it's a luxury one. If you can get rid. If you can't, accept that he's a decent asset as a 6 million midfielder. I don't know where you're going to find the money for Beck, Suj.
Downgrading Alan Shearer to Jason Hill.
Okay, that does enough. So who would you sacrifice for Beck's?
Harry Kewell.
Not Scowcroft, no?
Maybe Scowcroft, yeah. One of the two of them, either or, I could afford to.
I think it's probably the best advice I can give at the moment is for those still with a wild card, now is the time where you need to start thinking about when you might use it. So we don't factually know where the blanks and doubles are going to sit right now. In the schedule at the moment, Liverpool still have a double in game week 13, for example. But should they can't get through to the knockout stage of the Champions League, but they're in pole position to finish third in the group. If they beat Rangers in their last game, and this is a decent Rangers, by the way, then they'll finish third in the group, and that game week 13 fixture will get moved back. The reason I suspect I want to go game week 15 wildcard is there will most definitely be some doubles then in that week. We think Middlesbrough could be one. I think Blackburn, Leicester are two other clubs quite likely. And then there's almost definitely going to be some doubles in 16 as well. My thinking at the moment is quite possibly wildcard 15 to get the Borough boys in on that, and also game week 16 bench boost on straight off that and get into it.
Okay, interesting.
You really need to keep an eye on the communications at the moment in terms of what's potentially happening with doubles, blanks. By the time the guys do their stream on Sunday night on the Championship Manager YouTube account, we should know what's happening with those blanks, doubles. But basically, you're not going to know for sure if Liverpool have the double or not in game week 13 till after game week 12. Basically, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, so not worth overly planning too much.
No, but then, for example, that's part of the reason why at the moment I'm thinking I'll just leave Hippier there, just in case, because it'd be West Ham away, Tottenham away. It wouldn't be the worst double.
No,
even though it's 2 away games. So if it happens, then I'm probably in a position where I'd want to get more. The first target I'd probably look for is Heskey, who's due back in game week 12. One alternative for Shearer owners this week, if you're feeling brave and you got the extra 0.5 or so spare, Robbie Fowler is likely back, but a big risk of recurring injury, so I'm going to avoid.
There we go. And for everybody that is playing Trackman, if you haven't already tuned into James's live streams on a Wednesday night or a Saturday afternoon, then what have you been doing? Because they've been everywhere.
Carrying on with their lives.
Yeah, true. But there's also been plenty that have been listening. And to be honest with you, we've been enjoying seeing you tweet us with pictures of yourselves doing whatever you may be doing whilst having James on in the background and the live stream going and any other kind of FPL content as well. So do keep those coming and do keep tagging us, because it's fun to see what people are up to with their lives during lockdown, James.
Yeah, it's cracking. Who was it? 343 is back. He put a video on Twitter of his baby sitting in the chair going mad every time I spoke. Getting properly excited about it. Was looking like it had the hump if I went silent, and as soon as I spoke, it was pissing itself. So it's crazy shit going on out there. Was there any more questions on chat, man?
There was one. Yes, James, let's answer it. Do you think Middlesbrough are the real deal, or is this just a phase?
I don't know. I mean, they're one of only 2 clubs to have won more than 2 away games. Remarkably, West Ham's one of the other 3 others, actually. Sorry. So the reason they're top is they've done very well at home, including like beating Arsenal, and they've got a really good away record. That's why they're top of the league. Their games feel quite tight a lot of the time. Like they beat Tottenham 2-0 in the last game week. Tottenham had more efforts on goal on that. So it does feel like they're getting the rub a little bit, but they've got like Boxic to come back. If they get to game week 15 and they're still top, then it's really, you have to take them serious. You've got an amazing run of fixtures coming up. Some would argue that's started now as well. So they have had some tough games already. They've won at Liverpool. They've drawn at Chelsea. They've beaten Tottenham. They've beaten Arsenal. So they've got a few of the big ones out of the way. So at the moment, yeah, defensively they're quite good, which helps as well. They seem to concede the odd goal sometimes, but like they're Southgate and Egiog, Fester at left back, Stockdale at right back, Crossley's doing all right in goal. They're quite solid. And they've got players like Johnston, Gordon, who can return from midfield, Boxic, Rickard, Whelan as a front three. It's normally only the two of them. He's quite decent. So if we get to that wild card period and they're still top, then I think a lot of people will have 3 Middlesbrough players in their team by that point. It's all affordable as well, right?
Yep.
Like Boxic, it's 7 million is unbelievable value. The concern with him always is that he's just one game week away from an injury, basically.
Unfortunately, he is, yeah. So there we go.
Danny Ings made a glass in Championship Manager 2001 simulation. But a lot of people miss Danny Ings, right? For the same reason.
True.
I think Boxic is the long-term move, but I think for wildcarders, those who still have it left, I'd look at alternatives like Yule, maybe,
There we go. And that's that, James. Another show in the can, ready to be edited and put out and published to the wide world.
Boom.
There we go. So thank you for tuning in to Planet FPL Pod. If you have, tomorrow we'll be back at you with the People's Poll, where we will be discussing match fixing in Greek football and Olympiacos, more specifically. Kalimera, James.
I have no idea what that means.
It means good morning. There we go.
Kebab.
Learn a bit of Greek. And Wednesday, we got the quiz. Quiz this week is about the League Cup, the history of the League Cup. So if you want to swat up before that, then do so. Thursday, Throwback Thursday, we're looking at the current leaders of the league in 2001-12 champ manager Middlesbrough.
2012.
1-2, sorry. But we're looking at a different year. We're looking at 90, was it 95, 96?
96, 97.
96, 97.
Yeah, Middlesbrough went mad, bought Ravanelli to join in with Juninho, Emerson. Had a very exciting football team, got to the FA Cup final, got to the League Cup final, and still got relegated for a points deduction when they tried to get a game at Blackburn postponed. That football season of Middlesbrough is one of the most interesting football season stories to tell. A few people who are not Middlesbrough fans already said they're really looking forward to that one.
Good. And Friday live stream back at you again. So if you are not following us on YouTube, subscribed and got the notification bell rung, then you won't be told when we go live. So do head over to YouTube and make sure you do that. Other than that, James, just leaves me to say, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Be nice to each other, everybody. Cue music, man, child.